Well, we're here today just to give an update on some of the projects and just the history around everything with a couple of new elected officials on our commission. We've been getting questions about, why things were prioritized, why we're focused on certain project areas, and just thought it would be a great time to kind of go back to really just before Hurricane Michael and where we were as a city and why we are where we are today and some of the decisions and all that went into that. So I'll just kind of take a few moments here and just go through. You've got the project map here showing all of the projects around the city. And I will lay out, the roadmap that got us where we are today and what we're working on today and what we're going to be doing in the future. So interestingly, the week of Hurricane Michael, the city commission at the time actually authorized a fairly large infrastructure project. And after the hurricane hit and the city kind of started coming back together to assess all that had happened, they had an emergency commission meeting and very wisely decided to hit pause on every project that was kind of underway at that time and kind of take a pause to reassess the whole city following such a catastrophic event such as Hurricane Michael. And so what came of that was what we refer to a lot as the heat map. It kind of affected, where some of the most troubling areas were infrastructure, some of the most vulnerable areas were infrastructure-wise, and allowed the city leaders to take some of that data and make the very best objective decisions possible. So the case study of all the infrastructure, the condition of that infrastructure, the funding sources, all of those things went into kind of, effectuate the decisions that were made in the project areas that were being focused on. So I'll just state some of the things that the outside engineering firm and public works and civic leadership used were service requests across the city going back over the prior decade. Transit data road conditions. It was either the end of 2017 or the beginning of 2018. We brought in a company and they surveyed all of the roads and determined what the PCI was. That's the pavement condition index. It kind of tells us the condition of that road. And so we had that data available. There was a lot of camera work that was done in all of our sewer lines to kind of take a look at the condition of some of those pipes and also mark what the material was, whether it was the terracotta, whether it was galvanized, or whether it was newer PVC, which helps really determine where our focus and priority should be. We also looked at a lot of fire department data, to help determine water flow and water pressure in those areas to know where we should really focus. So again, we looked at water, we looked at sewer, we looked at stormwater, we looked at the roadway conditions, and we also looked at the water pressure in working with the fire department and some of that data. So what that helped provide was a quantitative assessment of all of the city's infrastructure, which honestly had gone probably 40 plus years without proper investment and maintenance, a lot of deferred maintenance, and that's kind of what caused us to be in the situation where we are today. So from all of that data, looking at everything that I just highlighted, we focused on certain areas around the city. And you'll notice that some of the different project areas are different colors. That indicates the funding source for that, whether it's local resources, whether it's state resources, or whether it is federal resources. So you'll hear us talk a lot about the State Revolving Fund, or SRF for short. That is a great tool that originates with the EPA and is administered here in Tallahassee for all the state of Florida by the Department of Environmental Protection. It's a great tool for smaller and medium-sized cities to help them address some of their water and sewer challenges that they have in order to provide clean drinking water and to effectively manage and route the wastewater that comes from our homes and our businesses. The beauty of the State Revolving Fund, and by the way, we've been authorized for around $106 million, and we've currently got about 20 more available that we're doing a rate study on right now to see if we can afford to absorb that debt. But the State Revolving Fund allows all of these projects to be funded on the front end. Again, we got about $106 million. Water, sewer, it allows us to redo the roads if those roads have to be disrupted for the purpose of replacing the water or the sewer lines. So all of the state covers it up front, okay? Second of all, there's delayed first payment on the payback of that loan. Right now, we're not set to have to pay back or begin to pay back that until 2027. So that's great, deferred first payment. When the payments start, there's an immediate upfront 25% forgiveness of the total loan. So we only have to pay 75% of it. And then that 75% is 0% interest for the life of that loan. So you can see why that is such a great tool that the city of Panama City decided to take advantage of. Now, the reason why we are redoing the roads in these areas, and these are predominantly some of the brown areas or tan areas, are some of the state revolving fund projects that we focused on and early on. We have a number of these projects out state too that have been designed, and we're just looking for some additional construction resources. But with the state revolving fund, because we're going to go in and update the sewer lines and either line them or replace them. We're going to replace the water lines. If there's any stormwater conflicts, we'll be able to redo those as well. There's disruption to the road. So the state revolving fund allows us to redo the road in that corridor. And if possible, if there's enough space in the right-of-way, the state revolving fund is flexible enough to let us add a sidewalk on at least one side of the road, because we want to promote walkability and try to get people out of the roads walking and riding bikes, again, if we have enough right-of-way space. So you may be near one of these state revolving fund areas, and you may be like, hang on a second, my road is way worse condition than any of the roads that were here. The problem is the road condition did not drive or initiate that project. It was rather the underground utilities. Again, looking at the number of service calls, looking at any of the sanitary sewer challenges we might have had, looking at water pressure, looking at any stormwater challenges in that area. That is what drove it. So your road may be in slightly worse condition on the surface, but the bigger question is, what was the condition of the underground utilities? And the state revolving fund doesn't give us flexibility to be like, okay, you're going to redo the water and sewer here, but 2 blocks away, the road is in slightly worse shape. So you can then go ahead and mill and resurface and repair that road. It has to be tied directly to the disruption of that road as it relates to both water and sewer and limited stormwater challenges. And so that's why, again, you may be near one of the SRF areas, and it may cause a little bit of a challenge to having to keep those resources very limited. Other types of issues and factors are the funding. You've probably heard lots of alphabet soup when it comes to like CDBG, which is a Community Development Block Grant, or you maybe heard us say HMGP, which is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. And all of these are also funding sources and resources available for the city in order to rebuild things. However, the funding is specifically restricted and limited to certain areas. So whether it's an HMGP grant, where we're hardening some of our facilities or some of our infrastructure, or whether it's a community development block grant, either for or not for directly because of disaster recovery, that's also limited. I'll just take a quick note here, and you'll see, and again, this map is available on our website as well, but you'll see a lot of these little red stars around here. These are lift stations that have been identified as part of the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program through FEMA to harden these lift stations. And so we're coming in and we're putting in, new pumps, new infrastructure in and around the area of those lift stations. And those are specifically for that. The one lift station on Beach Drive, lift station number 45, is going to be moved up to Garden Club Drive to get that lift station off of St. Andrew Bay. And then additionally, we've got some additional funding for lift stations. We call it Project Storm, and that's going to affect anywhere from 40 to 50 lift stations around the city. Those about 30 or 40 of them are going to be getting permanent bypass pumps, and then the remainder of the 40 or 50 that don't have our communications package on them are going to get that. So that will allow our crew to get really like immediate information pumped into our headquarters when we know there might be some challenges starting with a lift station, whether it be the well is filling up and not kicking on as fast, or the pumps aren't able to keep up. That's really good for us to get that information front. So there's grant money specifically for that, and it can only be used for that particular advantage. You'll also see some permanent bypass pumps getting mounted on concrete slabs. Again, that's going to be around 30 to 40 of our lift stations. those are identified lift stations where we really don't want those to fail. And so in the event that we lose commercial power from Florida Power and Light, these permanent bypass pumps have motors on them that are powered by either diesel or by natural gas. And so what that will allow us to do is, if again we lose commercial power, those bypass pumps kick on in relatively short fashion, and they keep the wastewater moving. And that's important because it keeps sewer out of the houses or businesses from backing up, because we want to avoid that, and it keeps it moving towards the wastewater treatment plants, either the one in St. Andrews or the one over in Millville, and also keeps the wells from filling up and overflowing. So those are, again, that's why you're seeing a lot of these permanent bypass pumps go in. One thing I'll notice too with the community development block grants, those have to predominantly be used primarily in a LMI, which is a low to moderate income area. This is funding, again, that originates with HUD, the Housing Urban Development Department in DC. And so there's certain parts of the city where we can use these resources and these grants, and there's other areas where they can't. So you may see, okay, why are y'all doing a project here when, maybe a quarter of a mile to the west it's in much worse shape, or a quarter mile to the north? And it's because, again, looking at that very objective quantitative data that we have from the engineering firm assessing all of our city and funding restrictions, this is why we have these project areas. And so another effort up here, you'll notice in the north part of Panama City, kind of in the west and northwest part, is we still have a number of septic tanks in the city. And the state, again, through the Department of Environmental Protection, has made a very intentional decision, really from Pensacola all the way to Key West. These coastal communities, they want to see the septic tanks off of the water. And so this is not even something that we've had to match. This is something that we have received appropriations for, and we're very grateful to Senator Trumbull and Representative Griffiths for their support on these projects, and some of them even go back to former Senator Gaynor and then Representative Trumbull. So we're very grateful for the support we get, not only from Tallahassee but also from DC. And this would give folks the opportunity to tie into the city water and sewer system and not necessarily rely on the septic tank anymore. And the city is not mandating any changeover. I do want to be clear in that, from septic tanks to city water and sewer. However, we do know that eventually the state will stop issuing permits and potentially require folks to make that change. So again, whether we're talking about Millville and Glenwood, all the way over to St. Andrews and Drummond Park, or whether we're talking about the Cove and downtown and the Garden Club up to Venetian Villa and Forest Park, all of these areas were really assessed, and eventually we will need to basically rebuild our city. But there are very objective and specific reasons that some of these project areas were chosen. Whether it be, again, the condition of the utilities, the roads, the history of all the service calls, the water pressure, as well as the funding restrictions and how our federal partners and state partners expect these funds to be utilized. And so, again, staff is always willing to answer questions and provide any feedback as to why certain projects are done. And I'll just state that if you live in one of these areas, we understand how disruptive it is. We're going into active living neighborhoods and really building it from scratch, from yard to yard. And we understand how tough that is, but our project management team of Public Works, our contractors, our engineering firms, we work very hard to communicate with the citizens and residents that are affected by this, and we've already gotten great feedback that yes, it's kind of a painful year during that process, especially when the asphalt is kind of the last step in that. But folks are so excited when it's done and so appreciative of kind of where we end up. So it's kind of that short-term pain, but long-term gain, because our goal in all of this, as we rebuild the city, as we address a lot of the challenges that you can't see, really setting it up for generations to come, and upgrading the materials and that. And I'll just state too, not just the project areas because of infrastructure and the funding, But there are also certain grants that are just for sidewalks. The state legislature several years ago kind of created some limitations where if you live within 2 miles of a school, there are not going to be any busing services. And so, we want to create safe walking environments for our students to get to and from school. That's why there's a push for sidewalks across the city. So, and that is a particular fund that goes through the Department of Transportation. And the Department of Transportation is not going to take sidewalk funding as appropriated and say, hey, you can go and repair infrastructure of your water and sewer lines. So that's why you'll see the city senior staff as well as our elected officials not just focus on one thing. All of these funding projects have timelines on them as well. Really, the bulk of all this has to be wrapped up by 2027. So that's why we're not just doing one at a time. There's a tight timeline, and it's why we're working together with everyone, all of our departments, the city manager's office, our public affairs and communications team, our design engineers, the lead engineers, the contractors, our partners in Tallahassee, our partners in DC, to help move all of these projects forward under the timeline, because we want to get this done just as quick as possible. But so many of these, projects have, again, specific directions, specific funding sources, and it's not that we're focusing on multiple things at once. It's that we're trying to rebuild as much of the city as we can, utilizing as many resources as we have available, again, from both Tallahassee and DC, as well as our own local assets we have, say, through the infrastructure surtax, to move that forward. And so for those areas that maybe aren't inside of one of these project areas that'll kind of take place, for the rest of this decade, know that our public works team right now is working on a kind of a pavement and repaving assessment and plan that they will present to myself, and then I'll present to the City Commission either by the end of this calendar year or the very early part of 2026 as we move forward to address all of these challenges. But before we come in and just start redoing roads, again, we want to make sure that we address the underground infrastructure and some of those challenges. So we want to make sure that we're not throwing, good money after bad. We want to make sure that before we repair any of the roads, that again, we address that underground infrastructure. So that's key. So hopefully this kind of paints a really good picture of a lot of the intentionality and the objective decision making that went into prioritizing some of these areas. The work that we've done, the work that we're doing right now, and the work that we'll continue to do. As always, please feel free to reach out to the city manager's office or any of our team members through our elected officials. If you have any questions, we're happy to get those answers. First Saturday of every month, we have a town hall here in the Rotunda, and that's for the citizens specifically. Myself and the commissioners and the mayor, we don't bring any agenda to that. That is simply for y'all to be able to come and ask questions and share concerns with the city manager and the city commission. And so we welcome that. And there's always coffee and donuts served as well. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. And I would encourage you to share it and pass along to your family and friends in and around Panama City that may ask questions, like, why the heck is the city doing that? There's almost always a good reason for it. Thanks, and have a great week.